Hello, my name is Selena Garcia, and I will be doing my project for Psychology 100 on empirically derived dietary patterns in relation to psychological disorders. And for in short, that means like an evidence based food pattern study and relating it back to psychological disorders. So, simpler. The main concept slash introduction. So before I get into the article, I just want to talk about what basically the article will be focusing on psychology wise. So depression, a mental health disorder slash like definition characterized by a depressed mood, loss in mood, or interest in activities. Examples: if you like have a family and you're like a mom and your kids are like, hey mom, come on, let's go out, we're gonna go out to like SeaWorld, but you're just like, you don't really want to go. And you're always like down all the time, you really don't want to like be with anyone, you're always basically like depressed, and you're uninterested in life, and pretend for friends if your buddies are like, hey man, let's go get a drink, and you're just like, you just don't want to go, you're like, it's okay man, I'll just stay home, and that would affect your work and or school. And possible causes would like include biological, psychological, or social distress. And biological meaning literally there could be something wrong in your brain that would cause you, like cellular wise, that would cause you to be depressed. And psychological or social distress because of like things around you, things could be happening in life that are like really crazy and it's really affecting you, and you just you become depressed because of that. And the other one I'm going to be talking about, anxiety disorders. So uncontrollable fears that are characterized feelings of worry, anxiety, or fear that is strong enough to interfere with one's daily activities. So like you don't want to go out because of like terrorists. So these are like examples. You see something on the TV and you hear news about terrorists blowing up a bunch of buildings and crowds and shooting up people. And so now you're just like, I don't want to go near crowds. And this also can deal with PTSD and soldiers who come back. They don't want to be around crowds, and they're always very hyper vigilant. And so that's like a form of anxiety disorder. You like pretend you can't go in an elevator because it'll crash. And you see like a bunch of movies, horror movies, where the guys go into the elevator, they're all calm, and then suddenly it starts crashing, and that like seriously like scares you. So that's also an anxiety disorder. You can't go in an elevator just because, even though it's safe, you can't because you watched that movie. So etc. It's usually due to like past trauma, or like you watch something and you get anxiety because of that. And sometimes, or usually, people that have anxiety disorder would have panic attacks. Research argument. So now back to the article. The present study aimed to investigate the relationship between major dietary patterns and prevalence of psychological disorders in a large sample of Iranian adults. So they're doing this on Iranian adults, and that's a picture of a bunch of girls who are Iranian, and that's the Iranian flag. So basically, what the research argument is trying to say is, does your diet patterns have a relationship to your psychological health? Research methods. A cross-sectional study examines the relationship between diseases and other variables of interest as they exist in a defined population, was done to identify dietary patterns derived from factor analysis. And basically, what that means is they used observed data and statistics to show what was important. And they used dietary data, which were collected through the use of validated dish-based semi-quantitative FFQ, or Food Frequency Questionnaire. This is a checklist of foods and beverages with a frequency response section for subjects to report how often each item was consumed over a specific period of time. And for psychological health, they were examined by the use of hospital anxiety and depression scale and general health questionnaire. So for the psychological part, they used the hospital anxiety depression scale, and for anything dietary related, they used the cross-sectional study which had like statistics and stuff, and dietary data, and they would basically like intertwine that to support their argument. Subjects. So the subjects that were used for this article were Iranian adults aged from 20 to 55 years old, and there were 3,846 subjects, and all of them being men and women, not just men, not just women, but both men and women. And that's a picture of just a bunch of people who are Iranian. So the diets that they conducted throughout this article. A lacto-vegetarian diet, which is like common in Iranian people, is a diet that includes vegetables as well as dietary products such as milk, cheese, yogurt, butter, ghee, cream, kefir, but excludes eggs. And the article also talks about a Western diet. It's characterized by a high intake of red meat, refined sugars, saturated fat, but little fiber. And the traditional diet are patterns of eating inspired by the rich culinary histories of cuisines around the globe. And don't mind my squeaky chair, I apologize for that. But so for Western diet, we all know what that is, like burgers, hot dogs, like American-ish food. And traditional diet is kind of like you go to your grandma's house and she cooks up some culinary stuff from like your culture, and it's like really healthy. Like you'll go in your garden, perhaps in your backyard, for example, and you like grab a bunch of herbs, and you slaughter your own chicken, or you buy chicken from the store. That's like traditional stuff, and yeah. So next slide. So the results of the article, or the research article, a greater belief to the lacto-vegetarian dietary pattern associated with depression. And that's wrong. And below are the results. So the belief that lacto-vegetarian dietary diet, that made no sense, but like the one that includes vegetables as well, dairy products, milk, cheese, that sounds pretty healthy, right? So that was the belief that was associated with depression. And here is what the results of the article showed. So women who had a traditional dietary pattern had a lower chance with having depression and anxiety. Men and women who indulged with a Western dietary pattern had a higher chance of having depression and anxiety. So basically, like whatever you eat at your grandma's house, she cooks up a healthy meal, it tastes good. That's healthier than eating a Western dietary pattern with like, how do you say it, like fast food. You go to McDonald's and you just eat a bunch of that. Like there is this actual movie, I forgot what it was called. But he basically ate McDonald's for like 30 days, and he came back to the doctor, and they did a bunch of blood tests on him, and his cholesterol levels were insane, and et cetera, et cetera. So side note, which was also in the article, in a study on Australian adult women, consumption of a traditional dietary pattern containing high amounts of vegetables, fruit, meat, fish, and whole grains was associated with lower odds of depression, which is interesting, and I think that's pretty cool. So eat better. Oh wait, I'll get to that later in the conclusion. Okay, so conclusions from research. Scientific relationship between major dietary patterns and psychological disorders. So there is a significant relationship, according to the conclusion from the article. And the general population are recommended to increased intakes of fruits, citrus fruits, vegetables, tomatoes, low-fat dairy products to reduce the chance of psychological disorders. And in addition to the general public, they should be aware to reduce the consumption of Western dietary pattern. High intake snacks, Doritos, a bunch of like Cheetos, like what we grab at Long's Drugs, for example, just as a side snack. It's really tricky. High fat dairy products, chocolate, carbonated drinks, which we love to drink all the time. Who doesn't like soda on a party day? And who doesn't like to drink soda after a pizza? Sweets, desserts. How can we resist desserts? Come on, I can't even resist desserts. To protect them from depression and anxiety. So, yeah, basically the article says to, don't eat bad food. It's gonna make you feel depressed, and that's from the research. What's the big picture? So basically, conclusion. Eating a Western pattern diet will not only lead to a higher chance of anxiety and depression, but poor health. And we kind of like always hear about that everywhere. Reasons to depression would lead to feeling unconfident in one's body because of the diet or poor health, like that guy eating a bunch of Cheetos while I don't even know if he's sleeping, but he is just not looking good. Feeling physically unproductive, like that guy with the coffee cup, and he just looks like he ate a bunch of McDonald's the other night, knocked out, and woke up and felt really groggy. An increase of chronic illnesses and early death. And that is true. And that's a picture of McDonald's. Whew. And the other big picture. Eating a traditional pattern diet leads to better health, a lower chance of depression. So you feel more energized, there's less chance of health problems in the future, and a healthier person in general, like that guy with the thumbs up. And you should be eating more fruits and less McDonald's and less fast food, and you'll look like that girl. She looks really healthy, and there's a bunch of green in the background, probably because she eats a lot of greens. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But yeah, basically, that's it. And that is my end of the presentation. Thank you very much.